Ready, Mel? Hang on a second.
Welcome, everyone. It's Guy Gordon from the ICCS, the Institute for Citizen-Centered Service. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm very pleased that it looks as though there's about 18 of us who are participating at this point in today's webinar, which is going to feature a presentation on the Municipal Common Measurement Tool. I'd like to thank you in advance for your interest and your participation. And what I'd now like to do is introduce Michal Zhang, who's the Research Project Manager at the ICCS, who has primary responsibility for managing the Municipal Common Measurement Tool project. And I'm going to turn it over to him for a moment, and then participate throughout the session at a couple of points. Just by means of background, I'd like to let you know that if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can send those to us by means of the chat box, and that will allow us to collect those questions, and also to let you know that afterwards, as is our practice, and in keeping with the spirit of the ICCS, we will be issuing a survey to get some feedback, which we use to evaluate how successful the sessions have been from your perspective. So look for that survey, which will be coming out soon thereafter. Now it's over to Michal, who will begin the presentation.
Thank you very much, Guy, and hello, everyone. Just as the first step in today's presentation, I just wanted to draw your attention, especially for those of you who may not be as familiar with the ICCS as the rest of you, to some of the key functions that the Institute some of the key roles that the Institute is providing. On this slide, you can see that the ICCS facilitates interjurisdictional collaboration. We manage intergovernmental research agenda. We manage the Certified Service Manager program, and something that we will be focusing on today, we support and develop the Common Measurements Tool. So we just wanted to include this slide just as the means of introducing the ICCS for those of you who may not be as familiar with it. But over the next half an hour or so, I will talk in detail about the Municipal Common Measurements Tool, or the mCMT, and will aim to explain what it is, how it can be used, and what some of the key benefits of using it are. So, what is the mCMT? What is the Municipal CMT? What does the tool do? It's a survey instrument developed specifically with municipal service leaders and managers in mind. Its basic aim is to equip them with a state-of-the-art, easy-to-use yet highly effective tool for measuring client satisfaction with local government services and for enabling direct comparisons through benchmarking between similar units. It has been designed to be applied in surveys across a broad range of service areas, from road maintenance and snow removal to parks and libraries to social services. It can measure satisfaction with the full range of service channels, including counter services, telephone, the web, and so on. And it can be used to collect feedback from various client types, including residents, businesses, and visitors. It is also aligned with the Enhanced Common Measurements Tool, which is the version of the CMT designed for all levels of government, not just the municipal level, as well as the Citizens First and Taking Care of Business research. But I will talk a little more on this a little later on. Right now, let me talk very briefly about how the mCMT was developed. The creation of the mCMT was a joint project between the ICCS and OMBI, the Ontario Municipal Benchmarking Initiative. The tool was developed in close collaboration with key municipal stakeholders, primarily from on-beat jurisdictions, and it was informed by a survey of municipalities designed to identify specific issues that the tool should address, by key informant interviews with managers representing a broad range of municipal service areas, such as IT, libraries, long-term care, wastewater, and so on, by an extensive literature review, and by an mCMT pilot survey, which tested the mCMT methodology, the applicability of the questions, and the overall approach in the municipal context. As a result, we ended up with the tool that is available today. However, ongoing validation with individual users will continue, and we expect that future versions of the instrument will be shaped by direct user input. Now, why did we do this? Why is the mCMT important? It is important because it helps to obtain a uniquely client-centered perspective on how municipalities meet the needs and expectations of their clients. While operational and financial data provides important information on performance of the organization, without customer satisfaction scores, the picture is not really complete. And it only makes sense to hear directly from the clients of municipal government, because ultimately the purpose of municipal government is to meet the needs of those clients. So the mCMT enables the voice of the clients to be heard. And by doing this, it helps to transform the organizational culture from one with an inside-out perspective, where decision makers often rely on their perceptions rather than empirical evidence, to one with an outside-in perspective, where client input plays an important role in shaping the way in which services are provided. Now, the mCMT approach has been shaped to a large extent by the research conducted by the ICCS for well over a decade now. The two primary examples of that research are the Citizens First and Taking Care of Business studies, which were launched back in 1998 and have since established an empirical basis for understanding the service experience and expectations of our clients. As we will see in a moment, we have drawn extensively from the knowledge obtained through these studies, and in particular, their latest iterations. Of particular importance to the development of the mCMT was the Citizens First study, which looks at citizens' satisfaction with government services across all levels of government, including the municipal level. I would actually like to mention at this point that the 7th iteration of the Citizens First research is scheduled to be implemented this year. Now, one of the central features of this research is identification of key drivers of satisfaction, which you see listed on your screen. These drivers are responsible for the vast majority of variance in satisfaction ratings provided by respondents. Timeliness and staff, the two drivers shown as stars on the slide, matter most because they have the biggest impact on satisfaction. They also show the greatest room for improvement across Canadian jurisdictions. Now, the staff driver consists of such components as courtesy, going the extra mile, knowledge, competence, and fairness. Now, understanding what drives satisfaction with services is important because it allows service managers to focus on those areas that matter most to their clients. And these drivers, which were empirically identified through Citizens First research, help to shape the municipal drivers of satisfaction that you can find in the mCMT question bank. So you can see that the mCMT relies on the tested and proven research that has presented consistent results throughout its iterations. Besides arriving at the set of key drivers of satisfaction, the latest iteration of the Citizens First research, that is Citizens First 6, has also identified drivers that are specific to municipal service areas. And the mCMT offers a set of approaches to measuring client satisfaction that is consistent with those drivers. You can see some of the service areas for which drivers have been identified on this slide. Just to give you an example of what those drivers might be, the 5 drivers that account for most of the variation in overall ratings for snow removal services include providing the service in a timely manner, meeting expectations, giving citizens what they need, doing the service properly, and providing good value for tax dollars. As a point of interest, road maintenance shares the same key drivers with snow removal, but includes one additional driver, which is going above and beyond expectations to resolve problems that arise. Now, the mCMT approach is based first and foremost on the Common Measurements Tool, or CMT methodology. It's essentially an adaptation of the CMT approach for the municipal context. As many of you will already know, the CMT is a client satisfaction survey design tool which was created by public servants for public servants and which has been designed to identify service improvement priorities and allow for benchmarking against peer organizations. So basically the purpose of the original CMT is the same as that of the mCMT. The CMT has been around since 1998 and is currently in its third incarnation called the Enhanced CMT. It has been adopted at all levels of government in Canada as well as in several jurisdictions around the world. And among countless similarities between the two instruments, the mCMT includes many of the same questions as the Enhanced CMT and uses the same response scale, which is the 5-point Likert. In addition, both instruments have sets of core and supplemental questions and use similar, easy-to-use format. So next, I would like to speak about how the mCMT actually works. In other words, I will talk about the Municipal CMT Question Bank and User Manual. As I just mentioned, the CMT documents, they basically the documentation consists of two parts, the question bank and the user manual. And on this slide, you can see listed some of the key features of both. And over the next few slides, I will aim to give you a sense of what you will find in these documents and how they can be used. Now, on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see an outline of the contents of the mCMT question bank. You will note that the first two sections deal with issues of quality of life and trust and accountability. These are optional sections for those users who are interested in assessing the impact of these factors on citizen satisfaction with the government services they receive. Even though service leaders and managers do not have as direct control over citizens' quality of life within the municipality or their perceptions of government as they do over service experience, evidence from leading practitioners and from research seems to suggest that looking at these attributes can still be useful. And it can be useful because citizen satisfaction with municipal government services has been proven to be impacted by their perceptions of government and their impressions of the municipality in which they live. Now, the remaining sections that you see on the right-hand side of your screen, service quality, access experience, and so on, they deal directly with service experience and include a very comprehensive approach to measuring satisfaction with individual channels, as well as with using multiple channels to access a service. At the end of the question bank, contextual or demographics questions are included to allow users to really zero in on issues that may be specific to certain subsets of population. So overall, the question bank has been formatted for ease of use, and the questions are presented in the way that they would appear in an actual questionnaire. Now, the first set of questions, question attributes that you will see in the mCMT question bank reflects the municipal drivers of satisfaction. These drivers represent service dimensions that have the greatest explanatory power in relation to citizen satisfaction with municipal services. I should note that the table that you see on your screen contains just a few examples of the drivers. It is not a complete list. Now, these drivers are recommended for use by all service agencies and can be applied across all service delivery channels. They were identified through an examination of Citizens First and CMT drivers and data, and the results of the mCMT pilot survey have confirmed that they are key to satisfaction ratings with the delivery of municipal services. You can immediately see that two of the listed drivers, namely access and timeliness, are consistent with the key drivers identified by Citizens First research. Now, all mCMT users are encouraged to use these drivers, where possible, for two basic reasons. Number one, by using these questions, they can be sure that they examine those areas that matter most to their clients. And number two, since these questions would be used most frequently by organizations implementing the mCMT, using them will also ensure a more robust benchmarking with other organizations. The second table that you will encounter in the mCMT question bank lists 31 questions known as the municipal key questions. While these attributes have significant impact on satisfaction ratings, the impact is lower than in the case of the municipal drivers of satisfaction. Also, while the municipal drivers of satisfaction are applicable to all service types in general, as well as all service channels, the municipal key questions represent measures that have been shown to be essential to the provision of specific municipal services. And in many instances, they're not applicable to all service channels. For instance, you will note that the last two examples in this table, namely there was adequate parking available and the office was conveniently located, they reflect the attributes that would only be applicable to an in-person channel. The next table from the mCMT question bank lists all municipal drivers of satisfaction and municipal key question attributes and maps them out against the applicable service types. The service type categorization has been introduced as part of the last iteration of the Citizens First research, and it groups services into categories based on a number of different criteria. At the top of the table, you can see what those service types are. And I believe that most of these are fairly obvious, fairly self-explanatory, but let me just speak to the couple that may not be 100% clear. Transactional services have been defined as the physical exchange between government and citizen of a tangible good or service with a short duration or low frequency of interaction. On the other hand, relational services represent interactions with a longer duration or higher frequency of interaction. And then, direct services are those that involve substantial interaction with staff, such as nursing home services, and indirect services reflect minimal or no interaction with staff. And an example of the service, of this type of service, would be road maintenance or snow removal. Now, the need to have a tool that would assist with collecting feedback with respect to such service types as relational or indirect was one of the primary issues identified by many of our stakeholders prior to the start of this project. And that is why the question bank provides guidance as to which questions would be particularly important to which service types. And for instance, you can see on the slide of the few attributes listed, timeliness and availability of the channels of choice seem to be the key attributes when it comes to information services. Okay, so on the next slide, you can see how the questions are actually presented in the mCMT question bank. As noted earlier, they are presented in the way in which they might appear in an actual questionnaire. Also, you can see that there is a text box that provides instruction on how the wording of the question might be adjusted depending on whether or not the service is ongoing. Such text boxes containing various types of guidance are included throughout the question bank to ensure that mCMT users have the assistance that they need. You will also note that the response scale used is 5-point Likert scale, and that the questions linked to the municipal drivers of satisfaction are listed together. Now, the basic function of the mCMT user manual is to support the use of the mCMT and to provide step-by-step guidance for mCMT users. From early stages of identifying research objectives, to survey design, to analysis and reporting. And the image on this slide comes from the survey design section of the user manual, and it's included here to illustrate the step-by-step approach that we've taken with the user manual. Each of the listed steps has a corresponding subsection of the user manual dedicated to it, and the mCMT user is closely guided throughout the process of developing a questionnaire. As you can see, the survey design section of the user manual assists the user first with identifying need-to-knows and services to assess, and then it goes on to discussing how the right questions should be selected and how they should be organized into an appropriate survey framework. The user manual also provides a number of analytical options for users, one of which is quadrant analysis, such as you can see on this slide. The quadrant analysis allows one to see what impact specific drivers have on overall satisfaction and consequently to identify priorities for service improvement. In the example that you see on your screens, survey module B, or the green dot, scores relatively high on both performance and impact axes and falls into the upper right-hand corner. This means that the organization should simply aim to maintain their current performance levels when it comes to this attribute. On the other hand, survey module E, or the red dot, has a high impact score but low performance score and falls into the upper left-hand corner. This clearly identifies this as a priority for service improvement, since while performance is weak, this aspect of service obviously matters to the organization's clients. And this slide simply provides an explanation of how the priority matrix from the previous slide should be read, with the top two quadrants speaking to the case study examples from the previous slide. So now let's talk a little bit about benchmarking. Now, the mCMT incorporates key elements of comparability across diverse users, which include common question wording, common scales, and common methodological standards. These common attributes allow for apples-to-apples benchmarking. Organizations using the instrument can gain access to the ICCS benchmarking service, through which they can obtain benchmarking reports providing insights on how their data compares to that of their peers. We've been providing this service to the users of the CMT for about a decade now, and we are ready to do the same for the mCMT users as well. On the screen you can see the breakdown by level of government of survey data submitted to the ICCS benchmarking service. You can see that half of all data comes from municipalities. And in addition, we are creating benchmarking lenses which are specific to the municipal context. A typical report for a municipality may include 3 lenses. An overall lens containing all data from our database, a municipal lens containing all municipal data from our database, and then a service-specific lens, which would be limited to data for a specific service type. Now, the bar graph on the screen gives you an example of the type of analysis that would be provided as part of a typical benchmarking report provided by the ICCS. Such analyses would be done on a question-by-question basis, and in this example, it's the accessibility question that is being used. The blue bar represents the submitting organization, while the red bars represent the peer organizations. The red horizontal line gives the overall average for the benchmark group. As you can see, the score of the submitting organization is fairly high at 4.71. We find that this type of analysis, while simple, is also highly effective at giving participating organizations a sense of how their performance stacks up against that of the others. Now, the benchmarking service also helps to identify top performers and points users towards best practice examples. While the ICCS guarantees anonymity of all units submitting data for benchmarking, it can also act as an intermediary to help organizations partner with one another if requested. In addition to this, CMT benchmarking reports contain concrete examples of specific actions taken by organizations with the aim of improving the quality of service with respect to specific drivers. And the example given here on the screen deals with accessibility issues. Now, enabling CMT users to share their insights and to learn from one another has been an important element of the ICCS approach, and this is something that we would be looking for to continuing with mCMT users as well. With this purpose in mind, as the number of CMT or mCMT users grows across Canada and around the world, we have been establishing and supporting communities of practice that foster the culture of collaborative sharing. Now, the next few slides provide examples of how the mCMT has been implemented in various contexts. In the first example, the ICCS has worked with an expert panel focusing on a specific service area and bringing together representatives of diverse jurisdictions. The goal was to create a standard questionnaire that would then be used to collect data across member jurisdictions. The members of the panel were able to identify those mCMT drivers that were of particular relevance to their service area, and based on that, the ICCS was able to assist them with aligning those drivers with corresponding mCMT questions. The selected mCMT questions reflected core CMT attributes, as well as the key drivers of satisfaction identified by the Citizens First Research and the ICCS CSAT model. Now, this type of collaboration illustrates one of the key strengths of the mCMT, namely to allow similar units from different jurisdictions to arrive at a common set of questions so as to be able to compare the results later on. In the second example, the ICCS led a workshop on the mCMT for a municipal department. The session brought together representatives of all programs within that department. The participants were asked to identify the drivers that they considered to be particularly important for their unit, and based on the discussion that followed, a set of questions applicable across all programs was selected. The session also identified special target populations that may have different drivers, for instance, newcomers. So, to sum up, the session showed that even though its participants represented very diverse units within the department, within the organization, it was still possible to agree on a common set of drivers that could be applied across the entire organization. This is in line with the basic purpose of the mCMT, which is to provide the means for selecting organization-wide sets of drivers and then for supplementing them with attributes based on requirements of individual units within that organization. Now, the last slide in this sequence deals with the applicability of the mCMT to call centers. We are approached about this type of service environment quite often, and that's why I wanted to discuss it very briefly here. As mentioned earlier, the mCMT methodology was designed for application across the full range of municipal services, and it can definitely be implemented in a call or contact center environment as well. As you can see on the screen, the instrument contains many questions which are very relevant to this particular service environment. For instance, the questions dealing with access, staff performance, or timeliness. Now, the latter, the timeliness attribute, could be easily used to obtain client perspective in relation to such common call center metrics as the average handle time or the average speed of answer. So this example essentially illustrates how operational and other types of data can be supplemented with client feedback obtained through the mCMT. So, what are the key advantages of using the municipal CMT? Some of these have already been mentioned in the course of my presentation. Number one, the mCMT is based on years of research, years of ICCS research, that have identified what really matters to the clients of the public sector. And then it provides common questions, common response scales, and common methodology that enable direct comparisons to peer organizations through the ICCS benchmarking service. And it should also be added that the tool is customizable and cost-effective, and it can be integrated easily with a broader performance management framework that is already being implemented within the given organization. But ultimately, the key benefits of the mCMT and the key takeaway from this part of the presentation is that it provides the ability to identify meaningful transformation opportunities around actionable drivers. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Guy to talk about the role that the ICCS plays.
Thank you very much, Michal. So let me just go ahead to outline a couple of key points with respect to the role of the ICCS moving forward and the licensing arrangement by which we are supporting the product. In terms of the ICCS role today, we have been working in partnership with OMBI, the Ontario Municipal Benchmarking Initiative, and have co-invested in the development of the product. So with respect to the investments that have been made to date by both jurisdictions, we have delivered on what OMBI had asked us to do. At this point, we are awaiting, we're at the phase of rolling the product out and looking forward to jurisdictions from across Canada and internationally to begin to use the product. But the current model that we have is one where this any support with respect to the ICCS is not funded, and we will have to recover those costs by the introduction of a fee-for-service model. Essentially, on that basis, we are available, the ICCS is available to provide support to a jurisdiction or jurisdictions with regards to the utilization in respect of such areas as survey design, analysis of results, helping to build internal survey standards and capabilities, identifying and applying best practices, and supporting the outreach of collaborative communities of practice. But I do want to underscore that we are available, but these services will have to be negotiated if they're anything more than just the occasional call and a quick question about what we with respect to any issue an organization may be having with regards to implementation. But as with any other organization, we have to recover our costs going forward in this regard. In terms of facilitating access to the municipal CMT from this moment forward, organizations can access the ICMT through an annually renewable license agreement with the ICCS, or parts of a broader membership the organization may have with the ICCS. So the option is an organization can choose to access the CM2, the Common Measurement Tool, the Municipal Common Measurement Tool, independently, or as we've been having conversations with several jurisdictions, they may wish to bundle this service with respect to their participation in Citizens First, taking care of business, and the utilization of the ICCS certification and learning program. So this becomes part of a broader negotiation that municipalities may be having with the ICCS in terms of gaining access to all of its services under the guise of a single membership. We are more than happy to talk about how that licensing arrangement works, but suffice to say that under the terms of the arrangement with OMBI, organizations who currently are part of OMBI would be able to access the mCMT for the remainder of the 2014 calendar year at no cost. Beyond that, there will be a fee that will be imposed. For non-OMBI jurisdictions, there is a fee. The fee structure would come into play immediately. So we can talk at any point in time about how that works. Should organizations be interested? So our goal today was really to give you the background on all the work that's gone into the mCMT, how we believe it's been customized and is very relevant to identify the voice of the citizen, the voice of the resident, the voice of businesses in respect of all of the specific areas of municipal service delivery, how the municipal CMT is a dramatic improvement over the original version of CMT, in that it's been validated in terms of its utilization for both high-touch, low-touch, and no-touch services, and that we are keen for, in particular, those OMBI jurisdictions that have indirectly paid for the development of the program to use what they paid for and to continue to work collaboratively with the ICCS. I'm going to leave it there to see if there's any questions, and Mihal and I will do our best to respond to those questions. And I just remind you that we can get those questions via the chat function. So over to you, Mihal. Oh, we have one question. Does the fee-for-service apply to the CMT as well, or just the mCMT? The fee-for-service applies to both. Our operating model with regards to support of the CMT and the is the same as the mCMT going forward. In the past, we've been able to offer these services virtually for free, but the ICCS is no longer in a financial position to be able to do that. That being said, we're always available to organizations to answer, the quick question, the 5-minute call. What would you do here? Can you point me in the right direction? Those types of things are, we don't charge for. But if we're being asked to be involved in a project to support any or all of those elements of survey analysis, project management, design, benchmarking, and so forth, there are fees affiliated with that. So thank you for your question, Adam. Any other questions? Okay, well, what I'm going to do is, there was one comment that came in with respect to slide 15. This came in from Lord Turner. So if you want to go back to slide 15, I just want to raise a point of clarification. On the slide, Lauren noted that the drivers speak specifically to a couple of areas are related to the payment. I think to clarify, these are, when you run the numbers as a whole, and you include in that group services that do include payments, these are the most important drivers. But I think, as Lauren pointed out, there are many, in fact, the majority of services where there is not a payment feature and there's not a separate payment. Most of the services, as we all are aware, are covered under the general taxes, property taxes that are assessed. If we go So I think that in a way we may have mischaracterized these. Yes, these are the most important drivers, but yes, this actually does apply to the situation where services are involved. I think to be clearer, if we go to the next couple of slides, Nihal, the point that we're trying to make is that when you look at broad categories, let me go step back. What we're able to do with the analysis of the CMT is basically drill into increasingly more precise groups of drivers. And you can see that in this characterization, in this slide, that you can see that the types of services involved, you get a breakdown of what the key services are. So where there were to be transactional services involving payment, you can, the previous slide really breaks down what those drivers are. But beyond that, if you were to think about, say, information or advisory services, these are the drivers. If you were thinking about social entitlement services, these are the drivers. And then, as we pointed out, we go even further in our analysis, and we've been able to determine the drivers for specific areas, road maintenance, waste and water, and so forth. And the point about the tool is that it's now allowing us to drill down to the level of precision where for all of the 20 plus services that OMBI measures and benchmarks, we're able to come up with a unique specific set of drivers that have been validated and are really the key actionable items that managers need to start with. And of course, if they want to supplement those with other things that they think are important, that's available to them. But we're really trying to give managers and folks who have the corporate view of performance measurement a really good handle on what are the critical things they need to be measuring in order to understand the experience of the citizens of their particular municipality. So I will leave it there and see if there's any follow-up questions. And if we don't have any that come in, I would like to okay, so we just got another question. For diverse populations that are multilingual in our city, are there different drivers for service related to language? That's a very good question, Lauren. We have not been able to determine that is a driver that is coming to the fore. However, that's a question that we may want to begin to think about a little bit more in terms of future development of the tool, and something we may want to test in future iterations of Citizens First, for example. So that's a very good question, and I appreciate that. Kate Johnson, how do we obtain a copy of the municipal CMT user guide? That would be available as part of the licensing arrangement you would enter into with the CMT. So with the municipal CMT. So again, if you're an OMBI jurisdiction and you'd like to participate and get access to the user guide and the tool, that's available to you, and you'd have to reach out to Nihal, and we put the licensing agreement in place and then provide you with that information. Okay, so I'm going to have one last opportunity for questions, and then we'll wrap up. Oh, can you repeat the last question? The last question was, how does one obtain a copy of the municipal CMT user guide? And as I indicated, that becomes available to you after you sign the licensing agreement. And again, to repeat, for OMBI jurisdictions, that is available to you as part of your OMBI membership at no charge for the rest of this year, and then there will be a charge that will be imposed as of January 1st, 2015. And if you're a non-OMBI jurisdiction, the charges will be applied immediately. So Jennifer asked a question: how would benchmarking work for municipalities with a two-tiered government system? Essentially, my understanding of how this works, Michal, is we would go into the database and match you up with. We would look to match you up either as on one level as just two-tiered versus two-tiered, and or if you are a two-tiered government, comparing yourself to other jurisdictions where there's only a one tier in place, we would do the benchmarking on a service-by-service basis. So that would be the way in which we would try and find the right sets of comparators. It's not always clear to people in the community who does what between the levels of government. That very well may be true, Jennifer, but they still are evaluating the service. They may not, they may misallocate who is responsible for the service, but they still have an opinion of how well the service operates and their satisfaction with the specific services. How we then sort of interpret that ourselves is how we can work with it. Okay, with 15 minutes left in our time, one more last, as the questions are still coming in, I'll give one last kick at the can. And I think there's no other questions that's been picked up. So with that, I'm going to thank you for your time. You guys get to go a little bit early. Again, the contact information, Michal, do you want to just give out your phone number and your email address so people can follow up with you?
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. So if anyone is interested, if anyone has any other questions or would like to obtain any further information, please feel free to contact us, and please feel free to contact me directly. You can see my email address and phone number on the screen. So again, I look forward to receiving calls from you or emails, and I would be really happy to chat about anything that you would like to discuss.
Thanks, everyone. Look forward to talking to you in the future. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Michal.